First of all, thank you for the invitation and thank you for the organization of the event. I'm from Siegen, and here's my sidekick from Siegen Bisons of our university team. And yeah, I want to talk a bit about actually sustainability in esports and a bit about the idea why we are here. So talking about esports, always the thing where I hear this quote, esports is the most gigantic industry that nobody has ever heard of. Yeah. For me, it's always difficult because I'm in esports for nearly 20 years. Thinking about this quote is always striking for me because, yeah, why didn't you do your job and look for new industries? But that's a starting point a bit, which makes it interesting. I want to start a bit about the idea what can be esports and why it is interesting before I'm getting into it more detail. First of thing, I find most fascinating as a business person. We have an industry that started global, that started in the internet, that started really global and now tackles the idea of being local. Brian talked about DreamHack and Jönköping and all that, which makes it fascinating to observe how cities are evolving in it. Think about Katowice, nobody heard of it before. Suddenly it is the biggest city in esports, having the IEM and having one of the most beautiful tournaments. If you have the chance to go there, go there. It's quite fascinating to hear the Polish guys screaming for Counter-Strike. Shifting metagame. You all know it. If you don't play League of Legends in 3 months, you have no idea what is happening. Everything has changed. And that's the general idea you have in esports. So it is always changing. It's always moving in another direction. It's always being a part where you see there is a change. From online to offline, yeah, DreamHack. Great example to see how it evolved from an online phenomenon to more offline events. Think about League of Legends, Paris, last 2 weeks ago. Great event with a tournament, with finals, with activation in the arena. The cup was in the Eiffel Tower. Really great to see. And therefore, a short definition. Esports is a social cultural phenomenon that is enabled by digitization and globalization, but shaped by the players. So every player in it makes it differently, thus making it a uniquely different and novel phenomenon. We can discuss this definition. It is just a start in it. And what makes me mostly ticking in esports, or why we need research in it, is the idea that we have one thing. Nico Besom's colleague from France already stated, actually esports started in the 70s and it is evolving. You see how it changes, how it evolves, and the main interesting part is what we want to talk about is how can we achieve sustainability. All of you who are working in esports are thinking, okay, or maybe don't think about it, what is my business model in 5 years? Maybe you think about, do I even exist in 5 years? But that's the part which we want to discuss, and that's the part where we see in research that at the moment, researchers are doing their stuff, practitioners are doing their stuff, that we need to get together to think about that. And one other part is this picture. It's always the question I ask, who of you heard of the World Cyber Games? Okay, last audience, there were 2 people who heard of it. At least here, half of it. Who of you went to a World Cyber Games? Okay, at least one. Where did you went?
I actually played Counter-Strike. So we were playing the what do you say? In 2004, we were playing the what do you say? The qualifications.
Qualification, yeah.
So we were the team. I think I think the team holding the flag was SK Gaming from Sweden, and we played them in the finals from the Swedish qualification stage, and we lost to them. So
Okay. What a pity. Then we would have met there. But the fascinating part is, you probably know it at best, we have this huge discussion if esports should be Olympic. And nobody talks about World Cyber Games. This is totally Olympic. They get gold medals and all that and have the flag bearer. I talked with many of the flag bearer on that and how happy and proud they were entering this field, waving their flag and having a medal won for their country. And that is the part where this picture shows so much about esports research. First of all, we are quite forgetful. We forget so much stuff that has happened in esports. And on that base, we don't evolve on it. So on the idea, why should esports be Olympic? It did not work there. Why should be or the gender topic? I think all of them are male, which is also problematic. And at the other part, business sustainability. World Cyber Games was sponsored by Samsung. When Samsung stopped sponsoring it, the league disappeared. So no business model behind it, no idea how to make it. And that's the part where research can be helpful, and that's the part where we thought about this collaboration part. We started meeting at ESL1 Cologne, which better place, watching some Counter-Strike games and having a talk. And the idea is to get some collaboration out of it, get researchers together and understand this phenomenon and understand what is actually happening there. It is local, it is global, it is digital. It is actually something where we could see in a digitized world. We could see what is happening in the society in the future. Yeah, and that's the part where a broad systematization, where we say, okay, that could be interesting. We started to identify research topics, but all of it work in progress. All of that, everybody can get suggestions in it, but that's making it interesting to see what we find fascinating, that you can research everything in esports. And it is a picture or a sign for the digitized society. So every topic can be interesting. You see our backgrounds more in it, from Siegen more the business strategic management, from Tampere more the gamification behavior stream, and from Jönköping more the marketing part. But you could think about everything, as you said, accounting, totally important in it, which can all be researched, which can all be understood. And the interesting part is it is something that is quite fascinating to observe. So, as said, Jönköping, Tampere, and Siegen. And what we are currently trying to do, connecting researchers all around the world, creating this link to practitioners, which we see is a total struggle at the moment. Researchers are doing their stuff, practitioners are doing their stuff, and we don't have an interconnection. Achieve rigor and relevance in esports research, also quite important. Teach the next generation. We have here Justice, who probably want to stay in esports, make their own startup or something else, to support you in that. That could be also helpful. Solve essential problems in a fitting way. Stephen Hanna will talk about it with their program ESSIC, where they are doing doping tests. You could do a doping test with 2,000 substance. They are doing a doping test with, I think, 800, because not all of them are relevant for esports. I mean, if you have bigger muscles, that are not helpful in esports. So why should we test for all substances? So that's a part we also want to try and help other researchers. We have this literature list, papers, esportsresearch.net, which I think is the most extensive at the moment. But if your research is missing, please send me an email and we add it on it. Right. That's about research network. But now talking a bit about sustainability. I based it a bit on the sustainable triple bottom line from Elkington, thinking about, performance, so business or economical sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. So achieving all three of that can be helpful for esports. Giving you an example, economical dimension, this discussion, is esports a bubble? We hear it every time, all the time, esports is a bubble, and it will disappear next year. For an industry that is around for 20 years, quite interesting that we always are not that successful. Other dimension, social dimension. Esports players are burning out in their 20s, which is quite sad to observe when there is a 20-year-old kid dealing with burnout. Nobody should deal with burnout, but especially not a 20-year-old kid. Other aspect, which is currently completely neglected, so neglected that I did not change the header. Ecological dimension. Video games consume more electricity than 25 power plants can produce. It is quite wasteful. And you probably saw your electronic bill when you have a new PC with a bigger power supply. Suddenly your electronic bill sparks. But the other part, if you look at Overwatch League, having home games, London Spitfire will travel to New York, and they will travel back to London, and all those teams will fly all around the world all the time. Look at Counter-Strike, they move from Katowice to Australia, to Brazil, to Russia, then to America, whole time counting the miles. And that's a part which is also quite discussable. Giving you a bit input for the workshop, so we may have some input on it. What is important? One thing is the stakeholders. We all know the core is the players. Everything should be surrounded by the players. Everything should be about the players. Then we have the major stakeholders. You have the game developers, Riot Games, Activision Blizzard, the tournament organizers, DreamHack, professional teams, Justice, the players. And all of them are working together. And currently the discussion is mostly game developers are deciding everything and they have all the power, but that is not sustainable. And if you talk with at least some of the developers, they also say, yeah, sure, we have all the power and we can decide everything, but we don't actually want to decide everything because that costs money. So if Riot Games want to decide everything, that would mean they have to decide how League of Legends is working in the Middle East, how League of Legends is designed in Cuba and all the countries. But that is the part where also game developers, and we have to get all on them on board to unite them to find some sustainable approach. And that's the part where those are the core stakeholders, therefore a sustainable environment, ecological, social, environmental. And the other stakeholders who are also involved, investors, shareholders, sponsors, providers, media, and suppliers. Everything debatable, but they are not the main important one. And one aspect, legal framework. I had this one discussion with a team organizer who said, what should I do? My players are quitting and leaving my company, leaving my team from one week to another. And I was a bit baffled by the question, did you have contracts? And suddenly he went silent. And yeah, sure, that was a problem. I mean, give the people a contract and have some regulations in it. So it is not this Wild West we all think about, but it is something we have to think about to make it sustainable. Fragmentation, another interesting topic. We compare it, esports with FIFA, NFL, or International Tennis Federation. We have League of Legends, Overwatch, Fortnite, for example. But at the end, we are talking about all ecosystems. For example, if you compare League of Legends France with League of Legends Germany, even though they are next to each other, their systems are completely different. And that's a part where reputation, regions, the art of governance, regulation, the focus, is it important, or the genre comes into it. So that means that you have an ecosystem for every game in every country around the world, leading to thousands of different ecosystems, making it difficult to handle. But that's something we have to think about if you are a team like Fnatic, dealing with League of Legends, Counter-Strike, some mobile games, Fortnite or all the other. And suddenly you have to deal with this complication. You have players from Brazil, you have players from all around the world, making it fascinating to work with. But what is happening next year? And growth was mentioned that esports is growing. I have here a slide talking about this bubble phenomenon. Still working on the real numbers, but we have this phenomenon. I will not go to detail, but we have already some arcade bubble. Arcades are gone. We had a startup bubble where teams or organization disappeared. We have the championship gaming series. Another question I always ask, who heard of that league? Okay, at least 5 guys. Totally fascinating. A franchise system with geolocalization. So you had a San Francisco team, you have, I think Birmingham had a team, Sweden had Stockholm, something, and all that. Yeah. And suddenly, the financial crisis and bad business, this league disappeared and actually destroyed the Counter-Strike scene in the US for a decade. They needed a decade to get back into the tournament, and only with Team Liquid, they became big again. So suddenly we have all those bubbles, and I probably see a bubble in quotation marks next year, where some teams will consolidate. But again, think about games. StarCraft was big around 2000, was big around 2010. Now nobody cares about it. At the BlizzCon, the final video of the event didn't have anything about StarCraft in it. Watch it, you don't see it, which is a really big sign that even Activision Blizzard has no interest in it. Counter-Strike, same. With Championship Gaming Series went down, having a time where there was Counter-Strike 1.6 and Counter-Strike Source. Sorry. And currently probably leading to some consolidation because the prize money is not growing and the players are too overpaid at the moment. Sorry. League of Legends, probably still growing, but not that fast. The same for Overwatch. Still say Overwatch will probably disappear. But here, just a sign to give you where this growth is going. And to make it more clear, you probably heard about the Forbes list where teams were evaluated And I want to show you two things. First of all, everybody's saying esports is going anywhere and it will continue to grow. That is right. Sorry, still working with a cold. But the interesting part is, look at that. Echo, Fox, and Optic Gaming. 2018, the big shining teams. 2019, they are gone. Optic was bought. Echo Fox had some legal issues and was dissolved. And did they actually destroy 150 million US dollars? There was a legal case. Actually, it was valuated at 50 million. So those numbers don't fit at all. But again, you are an investor and see those numbers and think, oh my God, that is this big, huge industry. And then you see, okay, they are gone. That has nothing to do with sustainability. And that's something we have to deal and tackle with it. Therefore, just a proposition as a sustainable framework. We have here some actors, government, teams, local groups, federations, the modern game developers, LAN organization, and media, where we have the top level and the grassroots level. Top down, we can add some stability in it, have some regulation, have some rules, have some environment. And at the same time, we need here this bottom-up self-governance grassroots. So what's happening in Jönköping and all around the places to create a dynamic environment, keep it dynamic. And what's missing, okay, where we see us in the research part, to be place of it. Regulation, ESIC makes a great job to enable them, and education. So get those worlds together in order to create sustainability and legitimation. And that's the part where research comes into it as well. If we are researching it, it becomes more legitimized. Here, I'm especially open for suggestions, ideas to move forward, and but it is something that can be helpful for the discussion later. I want to give you two short examples why esports is relevant for society, for everybody around esports. So my background is HR, human resource management. And I find it fascinating to observe how esports evolved. So around 2000, totally digital, decentral, democratic, agile. So the buzzwords you always hear in today's working world. Everything was chaotic and everything was startup feeling. And over time, we saw a development. It became more centralized. Gaming houses. Players came together to live together, to play together. Even going further to the idea, there's suddenly a hierarchy. There were coaches. At the beginning of esports, there were no coaches. There were no analysts and all that. So suddenly we have that. And now we are moving to the concept of work-life separation, works councils. In Counter-Strike, August is off-limit. There are no tournaments in August. So players can relax, can regenerate. ESL is working at a works council. They have now a works council initiated by the employees. So, and that's the interesting part, which I find fascinating as an HR guy. Creation of sustainability is done by, or done to have players perform on a high level for a long time. So we all know, especially on a professional level, they only play from 17 to 27, but always on high level. And at the same time, we have in the digitized working world, the movement backwards. So what we did in esports 2005 is now the next big thing in the working world. And that can be a sign where we see we are actually 10 years before the development of the digitized society. Other topic, platform economy, part of esports since 1996. Think about Uber, think about Airbnb. Yeah, Airbnb had a great time yesterday with it. They canceled on me and I had no apartment. So realized what the platform economy can be. But it is interesting to see how esports is also quite in front of this development. So various strategies. I take the example of Battle.net. The same platform, the same technology, all over the games. And you all know every game has a different strategy. So Overwatch is totally over-regulating. So Activision Blizzard tried to control everything. Heroes of the Storm, also fascinating example. They pulled the plug on the league, stopped paying the players, and the game disappeared. Hearthstone, yeah, they do something with it, but actually not really committed. StarCraft 2, they did quite a lot, and it's also quite interesting example where they, with canceling the LAN support in this game, reconquered South Korea from an intellectual property perspective. Suddenly, they had no chance to conquer Korea or have a saying in it, did something in the technology, and suddenly they were again the leader and the organizer and the driving force in Korea. World of Warcraft, I say always they are ignoring it from an esports perspective, which means the community is doing stuff. But they are allowing it in a certain way. And suddenly we have here a research topic that can be interesting to understand how platform economy is working. So those are just some examples. Therefore, I think esports can be sustainable. The question is how. Still, it is a unique environment. I still think it's versatile and diverse. We will probably hear more tomorrow from female legends. Dynamic, and that's the part where we have to think about how can we create a sustainable environment in it. And therefore, that's some thoughts for your consideration. And actually don't know how much time I wasted. But yeah.